What does it take to call the police on your own mother? Not after an argument, not after a confrontation, but the very next morning, without a single word said between you first. I found out on a Tuesday afternoon. I called the police on Wednesday morning. I have not spoken to my mother since. To understand why, you need to understand my grandfather Arthur first. 79 years old, 41 years as a mechanical engineer. The kind of man who keeps every receipt in an accordion file organized by month, who sends birthday cards through the post with a check inside because he doesn't trust online transfers, who taught me chess when I was 6. When I decided to become an accountant at 19, he told me, "That suits you, Megan. You've always liked knowing exactly where things stand." I am 28 now, a management accountant. I notice when something doesn't reconcile. My grandfather was right that this suited me. I wish, more than I can say, that he had been wrong. My mother, Diane, is 54. She'd been helping my grandfather with his affairs for 3 years as his memory started to slip, sorting his post, taking him to the bank, having tea with him every Thursday. 18 months ago, his doctor noted mild cognitive impairment and suggested power of attorney. He gave it to her. Because she was there. Because she was his daughter. Because she had given him every reason to trust her. I found out what she'd done because of an old habit. My grandfather had started setting his bank statements aside unread, said the numbers blurred together now. I told him I'd go through them with him. On the first Saturday of February, over his homemade vegetable soup, I opened the accordion file and started reading, line by line, the way I read anything financial. By the third line, something didn't make sense. By the bottom of the page, I had 4 things circled in my head. 6 transfers in 3 months alone, 800 to 2,000 pounds each, going to an account number I'd never seen. Standing orders, scheduled, not accidental. I went back further. 18 months of statements, all in that accordion file, while my grandfather sat across from me talking happily about a nature documentary. By the end, I had documented 41 separate transactions. 29,840 pounds. I didn't tell him that day. He was talking about a television program with total ease, completely unaware, and I made the decision in that moment, complete before I'd consciously reached it, that he was not going to find this out at his own kitchen table on a random Saturday with no preparation and no support. I closed my notebook. I finished the soup. I hugged him goodbye the way he always hugs me. Both arms, full weight. I drove 2 miles to a petrol station and sat there for 25 minutes before I could drive home. The next morning, I called the bank's fraud line. After 45 minutes describing every transaction to a woman named Carla, her voice changed. The voice of someone confirming something they'd hoped wasn't true. She said, "Ms. Holloway, I think you should contact the police." I didn't call that day. I went home, thought about my mother, her coffee, strong with 1 sugar, her Sunday calls for 26 years. I thought about my grandfather eating soup, not knowing. I lay awake until 2 a.m., got up, rewrote everything in a clean notebook with proper dates and amounts, went back to bed. I lay awake until 5. At 9 the next morning, I called 999 PC. Rashid arrived with a colleague within 2 hours. I walked him through everything, methodically from the beginning, the dates, amounts, account number. He asked if I understood I was reporting my own mother. I said yes. He asked if I wanted a formal investigation. I said yes. I slid a 9-page written statement across the table. I texted my mother that afternoon. Ordinary small talk. She replied within 10 minutes, 3 kisses at the end. I never responded again. She didn't notice for 9 days, which told me something about how much we'd actually been in contact that I'd never examined before. The investigation took 6 weeks. I kept visiting my grandfather, bought him groceries, listened to him talk about restarting his vegetable garden, said nothing. My Uncle Derek called in week 3, sensing something was wrong. I told him only, "When you find out what's happened." I did not have a choice. He trusted me without demanding details. She was arrested on a Thursday morning at 7:45. I'd asked the police to tell me after. Not during, I didn't want to be sitting somewhere. Picturing the exact moment the door opened, she was charged 6 days later. The receiving account was in her name, opened 3 weeks after she got power of attorney. All 41 transactions had been authorized using that legal authority. She'd signed as his representative and sent the money to herself. Fraud by abuse of position. Maximum sentence, 10 years. She pleaded not guilty. That's when the family found out. My Aunt Sharon showed up at my door at 7:30 one morning, demanding to know what I'd done. I told her. I'd reported a crime. She said, "She's your mother." I told her exactly what that mother had done. 41 transactions, 18 months, a man who trusted her completely. Sharon admitted my mother had told her weeks earlier she'd borrowed the money and would pay it back before anyone noticed. I pointed out the account had been opened 3 weeks after the power of attorney. This wasn't a slip. It was planned from the beginning. Sharon left. She didn't call me again for months. I told my grandfather myself the following Wednesday after consulting his doctor on exactly how to deliver it. Calmly, with pauses, no euphemisms. I laid it all out. He sat quietly for a long time. Then he said, 41 times. I said yes. And it was Diane. Yes. He looked at his hands and said, I see. You called the police? Yes. He was quiet. Then he said, good girl. I don't have a more accurate way to describe what happened in my chest than those 2 words. He cried later, alone in the next room. And I let him, because he deserved to do that without an audience. Afterward, he called through to ask if I was all right, found the biscuit tin himself, and told me a story about his own father. Document everything. Let it resolve correctly, because shortcuts never hold. You did the right thing, love, he said. I am not going to forget that. He has not said my mother's name since. The trial came 7 months later. My mother tried reaching me once more in month 4, through my employer's HR department, claiming concern for my welfare. My solicitor, Constance, called it a significant miscalculation on your mother's part and sent a firm letter. The contact stopped immediately. Aunt Sharon came around in month 5. Derek told me she'd been sitting with the facts of it, finally accepting there was no version where this had been an impulsive mistake. She called me herself in month 6 and said simply, I was wrong to say it should change what you did. I was trying to make it smaller because it was easier to be angry at you than to sit with what she actually did. I told her I knew. I testified on the 2nd day of the 4-day trial. My mother sat 12 feet away the entire time. I didn't look at her once. Her barrister asked if I'd considered speaking to her before calling the police. I said yes, and concluded that doing so would only give her the chance to move the money or destroy records. He asked if I'd had any hesitation. I told him the truth. I'd had significant hesitation on the night I found the statements. I resolved it by morning. The jury returned guilty after 2 hours and 17 minutes. I called my grandfather immediately. They found her guilty, I said. He was quiet, then said simply, all right, thank you for telling me. Come at the weekend. I said I would. She received a 14-month suspended sentence and a full repayment order, £29,840 plus interest. I was in the public gallery when it was read. She didn't look up at me once. What I felt, watching her, was something close to compassion in its most stripped-down form. I didn't wish her harm, felt no satisfaction in her sentence, and felt absolutely no regret either. Both things sat together without contradiction. My grandfather has now been repaid in full. Every penny. My mother and I have not spoken since the morning before I called the police. 9 months now. I haven't blocked her number. She hasn't called. I'm not ready for a conversation that I expect will begin with, I didn't mean for it to go this far, because 18 months and 41 transactions was never an accident. And what I did in response was never cruelty. It was the correct use of the systems that exist to protect people like my grandfather from people who decide that trust is a mechanism instead of a gift. He calls me every birthday, the same way he has for 28 years. Sings the first line badly, laughs at himself, asks about my work with genuine interest. At the end of every call he says, I love you, Megan. I say it back now and mean it completely differently than I used to. I mean it with everything. I called the police on my own mother. She was convicted. She has repaid every penny. My grandfather is in his kitchen with his porridge, his chess set, his vegetable garden, and his accordion file. Fine. People tell me, she's your mother, as if that's the end of the sentence. As if being someone's mother is a permanent exemption from consequence. She is my mother, and she stole nearly £30,000 from her 79-year-old father over 18 months, using the legal authority he gave her out of love and trust. Both of those things are true. I'm no longer interested in the argument that one should cancel out the other. He trusted her. She chose what she chose. I chose what I chose. And the systems built to address exactly that worked the way they're supposed to. My grandfather is fine. That's the fact I keep returning to. I visited last Sunday. We played chess. He beat me, and he always does, without apology. At the door, he held me with both arms and said, "Come again soon, love." I said I would. I always do.